In depth tonight, a man who terrorized an Omaha family decades ago will soon get out of prison. In a story you will only see on 6, Brian Mastery traveled to north central Nebraska to talk with the family about why they believe he'll strike again.
Over about 2 years, I was able to walk again.
A year and a half ago, Rick Morrow finally came back home.
Did you have reservations coming back to Nebraska?
Oh, both of us did a little bit. But
it was a struggle for survival in the 1980s that made him leave in the first place.
You looked pretty good, by the way, for a guy shot 3 times.
There was a while I was pretty skinny.
Rick Morrow's heart stopped beating that morning in 1987. Here he is in the back of the rescue squad. His 5-year-old daughter at the time didn't think she'd ever see her father again.
I remember hearing that he had died and not understanding that when somebody's revived, they're not dead.
She lives on the East Coast now. We talked to her via Skype.
My sister and I were downstairs. We had bunk beds in the basement.
July 1987. A man cuts the kitchen screen to the Morrow home at 37th and Brown, severs the phone line and climbs into the place with a nearby ladder.
Who would have ever thought that, at 4 o'clock in the morning, your bedroom door would squeak open and some huge man would say, there you are, now I can kill you, and fire a round between you.
The family didn't know the intruder, later identified as 27-year-old Darwin Minton.
Right back here.
Minton shot Rick Morrow in the head and said he planned to assault his wife and their 2 daughters before slitting their throats.
He thought he'd killed me.
Morrow was in and out of consciousness, but he remembered he had 2 guns by a dresser 4 feet away and only one was loaded. He waited to make a move.
Because there was no light. So if you were going to grab one, you better get the right one.
He did. He fired 1 shot that took off some of Minton's fingers and hit him in the jaw. His wife, who was being assaulted, got the suspect's gun and ran to the neighbors for help. After a plea bargain and no trial, a judge eventually sentenced Minton to 35 to 55 years in prison. Darwin Minton goes before the parole board this Thursday here at the Omaha Correctional Center. The victim's family believes that he will strike again and terrorize, not based that on a hunch, but because what he said that day at sentencing.
He said, 27 years I can do that. I'll still be young enough to do this again when I get out.
We just want to avoid anybody else having to deal with that.
Even if Darwin Minton is denied parole this week, his mandatory release from prison will be this summer.
What would you like to see happen?
Well, I'd love to put him back in the pen for the full 55 years, but that's not going to happen.
You know what you're going to say next week at the hearing?
Yeah, I do.
Still, he'll share his story and concerns with the parole board in person.
If there's any good to be done by anything, you got to do it.
With photographer Jim Hinchuk, I'm Brian Mastery reporting, WWT6 News.
The family is also following a number of bills in the legislature. They want to make sure any inmates who get out are tracked. We'll be there Thursday at the Community Corrections for the parole hearing, and we'll let you know what happens. Since his mandatory release is coming up in June, Darwin Minton has stayed in a less secure facility across the street from Omaha Corrections. That often happens for inmates who are getting close to being discharged.